Blue carbon is the carbon that is stored in marine systems around the world. And in particular, we're worried about the carbon that's stored in coastal systems, the mangroves, the seagrasses and the salt marshes that line our coasts from the equator to almost to the poles.
Wetlands are an important part of the carbon cycle. People don't really appreciate or recognise it so much. Trees are a lot easier things to see in the landscape, and trees do sequester carbon. They take it out of the atmosphere and it goes into biomass. It goes into trees and where it's stored. Wetlands such as this are very similar, but what's a little bit different is that while there looks to be a lot of carbon in the above ground biomass here and the plant material, actually most of the carbon is in the soils. So even for mangrove systems, tidal wetlands and seagrass beds, which what people don't normally think about in terms of carbon pools, these are very significant indeed.
So over thousands of years, these coastal systems store carbon, and this is done in one of two ways. They, like all plants, whether it be a huge tree in the Amazon or a small seagrass along our coasts, they absorb carbon dioxide from either the atmosphere or the water around them, and then bury it in the soil below them through a process called mineralization.
The problem is that if you disturb these soils, they can release a lot of carbon very quickly. So if you convert them to salt ponds, such as happened around here, or shrimp ponds in other parts of the world, or you build on them, then they can release hundreds to thousands of years worth of carbon within just a few decades. And that's one of the big problems around the world right now, is the rapid rate of wetland loss and the carbon emissions that go with that.
So up behind San Francisco, the San Joaquin-Sacramento Delta is full of agricultural lands that are sitting upon natural salt tidal marshes. And over the last 100 years, we have levied those salt marshes and drained them for agriculture. And as we've drained them, we've also exposed the carbon and allowed it to oxidize and release into the atmosphere. Now, over the last 100 years, through this process, we've released 4,000 years worth of carbon into the atmosphere, and an amount of carbon that's the equivalent of all the carbon in all of California's forests.
The carbon that's within the soils just evaporates and it goes back to the atmosphere. It would be very similar to burning trees in a forest. When you see a burning forest, that carbon just goes straight back to the atmosphere. This is exactly the same sort of process.